Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode where I am revealing my newest release, Dancing with My Demons, which the cover is here. This has officially been published since yesterday, so November the 10th of 2025. This is officially published, and it is a collection of poetry where it discusses overcoming trauma and the healing journey along with it. And this particular poetry book is kind of my own traumas and how I am working on overcoming them and where I'm going after that. And this is how I wrote it because a lot of people, when you see like trauma or something dark, you think of like a demon or an evil, like it's a bad thing. So I want to talk about like how you can flow and dance with them, and this is how you're healing because you're mostly moving in this like fluid motion rather than moving in like this is one way, like very rigid. So I actually pulled up both the description and I'm going to read a couple of poems that are actually in the book just to kind of give like a little sneak peek. I have 5 that I picked out that I have a computer off this way that has both of them up, so I'll be reading off of there and kind of just showing it off. I'll also be reading the dedication too because I feel like the dedication really encompasses the book for whoever wants to read it. Now, Dancing with My Demons is available with Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and other apps. I believe some library apps are working. I submitted for some library apps like Hoopla and Everend Fable, a couple of those. I think Smashwords is on there too. I submitted for that, so this should be on there at some point, I think. I got the notification that they were at least submitted and working on publishing. So they did at least accept it and working on doing the whole thing. But I figured this video is a good one to just be like, hey, here is my book and why you should read it. And, we'll go into depth with that. Now, the ones that I think why you should read it is if you're also in kind of that moment in your life where you feel just kind of stuck. This is kind of what my book ended up being about, which is I still am working towards the healing and figuring out where to go. But for part of my graduate school, I did feel stuck. I felt like I was on the right path, but also not at the same time. And so I actually started this book 2 years ago, I believe, is when I started it because I was trying to put down to words like where I'm feeling or how I actually moved through this. And I finally like finished it this year and did the editing process, did all of that like this year. And so this is kind of my like, finally the hard work's paid off, here's my book, like type of thing. So this book deals with narcissism, like narcissistic parents and grandparents. But then there were bullying, adults not believing in the bullying, and not believing by meaning that obviously I was using it for attention, so bullying can't happen. Someone like me should just accept the bullying. So poems along that sort of lines. And then dealing with betrayal and how I've felt after different things have gone on. Because dealing with both a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic grandparent, being told my entire life to act, well, not my entire life, my entire childhood, that I should act a certain way to be a certain way, and that is the proper way of being it. When I got into being an adult, I really was just like, what the hell am I doing? Because I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like I'm here. I felt kind of like a ghost in my own way. When I was an undergrad, it really started kind of opening up because you're in college, you kind of get a lot of freedom. And I did take advantage of those freedoms. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't really know what I'm doing. And it was actually around that time is when I was with my I like was talking to my mom about it, and was kind of the whole process of cutting off like my narcissistic father. And then I also went through in my master's school having to cut off my narcissistic grandmother. And so each time it was kind of like an unraveling of something, and then ta-da, like all goes kablooey. So that's kind of where like the beginning of the book is like where it was and how it progressed. And then it comes to here and it's like, okay, how am I supposed to heal this? And now how am I supposed to find myself? So I'm going to read the description of it just to kind of get a more clear idea. So it's, what if your shadows were not meant to be silent? What if you were supposed to dance with them? Heather Mullenax invites you into an intimate journey of self-discovery where struggle and healing move together in rhythm. Through raw poetry, cosmic reflection, and heartfelt insight, if I can speak, she explores what it means to confront those inner battles. She shows how to embrace every part of yourself and begin with the heart in your fire, or fire in your heart. If I can read this like and not stutter, that'd be nice. Each section of the poetry describes Heather's current healing journey, how she is healing for the better. Her poetry describes her past traumas, her realization to heal, her current healing journey, and where she'd like to go in the future. This collection of poetry is for those who do not want to feel alone in their healing journey. As Heather reminds us, you have the pen in your healing journey. You dictate how life will go. So this kind of ties in with the dedication that I put in the book, which was, healing is never a finished job. Those of you on your healing journey, please believe that it is worth it in the end. Find your truest self in the deepest part of your heart. And remember, you are the writer in your healing journey. It may not make sense to others, but you do have the pen. And that was kind of my mentality when I wrote the dedication was, I mean, healing journey is, you know, you're gonna have it. Come on, camera. There we go. Healing journey is never finished. It's very and it's not linear either. You're going like, it's like, it's almost like a heartbeat. And sometimes it goes up and it kind of flats here and then it hits down and then comes back up. Let's see if I do that on screen. Like it goes here and you go up and then you're like, all right, I'm here. Oh shit, now I'm down here. Now come up here type of stuff. So that's kind of where I was thinking, is that the healing journey isn't like that, but you do control it. You do have that, like the pen I was talking about. And so that's where the dedication and the summary kind of tie in together to convey that that's what I mean when you are reading this book. So now I'm going to share some of the poems in it because, so in the collection of poems, there are, let me look, there are 64 poems in the entire book. I'm going to read 5. So I'm not going to read a whole bunch, but there are like some of my favorites in here that I do want to just show so you guys kind of get a glimpse of them. And so you can see, hey, do you like this book? Is this up your alley? Do you want to read more? So the first poem I'm going to show is a narcissistic parent. And like I was hinting at before, dealing with a narcissistic father, this is where it kind of conveys into it, and how my childhood self didn't see it. My childhood self that thought that this is how you were supposed to be loved. This is how you're supposed to, this is your father. But then it's kind of the realization as I grew older. So have you ever grown up with a narcissistic parent? One who puts on a front and makes you believe they are your superhero, before you realize they were the supervillain all along. A narcissistic parent never does anything wrong. The affair happened, but it meant nothing. Oh, you're angry with me. It wasn't my fault. You were overreacting again. A narcissistic parent sees no harm in what they did. They do not know your walls are built 6 feet too high because you're afraid the next person who loves you only wants you as a trophy. They don't know the anger and hurt you feel when you try to reclaim everything. They are just royalty, perfect to the naked eye, but look any deeper and see the demons that infest them. The monster who knows how to put up a front as a perfect person. This monster that doesn't know of love unless they are bowed down to his royalty. A narcissistic parent will go through life with a new identity to prove that the past never happened. This new facade gives them the confidence and the comfort, but like every supervillain, they can only peak so much before everything comes crashing down. So that is kind of my overall thoughts on the narcissistic parent. The next one I'm going to read off. I was about to say show you. The next one I'm going to read off is called An Intricate Mask. Now, to put a little background in this before I read it, my tarot cards called out the fact that it's almost like you wear a mask to be the person that you need to be for this person, or be the person, or then you change your personality to match a different person, because it's easier to do that than it is to be yourself. And really, how the tarot cards explained it hit me. And this is like where it started to hit that, oh, I need to probably do some healing. So this is kind of my thoughts on it. And so it's kind of imagining that I have a mask on my face. So it's one may choose to wear a mask in order to fit in. Someone's whole identity is thrown into a bin. Society deems one to act a certain way. A mask is made. A mask adorned with intricate beads, one could look at it with greed. Beautiful, sophisticated, and gorgeous, I hear. One may deem it not a mask, I fear. But a beautiful mask has an easier time to hide. One could leave their identity to die. A beautiful mask can hide my scars, my fears away. I can fit in and not be led astray. But to wear such a sophisticated mask, one must have the strength when called to the task. A sophisticated mask such as this can weigh a person down to the abyss. But gaining so much strength means losing another. Your identity begins to smother. Can one look into the mirror and recognize one's own true self before their own demise? So that's kind of the explanation of really the putting on a mask to convey a certain way. The next one I'm going to read is Loving Myself. Now, this is kind of a sad way to look at this, but for most of my life, I did not know about loving yourself. The self-care, the taking care of yourself, I mostly thought it's just being a human, that you do these certain things, and it's not really to take care of you, it's more just it's built in. I think that's how my brain was looking at it. Even as a kid, when it came to brushing your teeth or, putting products in your hair or something, it's a way to convey yourself to look a certain way, to make yourself look this way. It wasn't until later that I realized that the brushing the teeth keeps the teeth healthy, so it helps you become healthy. Putting products in your hair is giving you to help you look like how you want to look and convey yourself. How you dress is, how you want to look. So I wrote that loving myself, which is, when I began to love myself, I found it strange. How was I supposed to love myself when I never tried before? When I began to love myself, I found it hard, especially when I was always on guard. Loving myself was always a task to be completed, even though I always felt my energy was depleted. Loving myself was something never taught. It sometimes felt like a lot. When learning to love myself, I found parts of myself that I adored. It made me desire to find more. When learning to love myself, I found a soul, one that was hidden down my own rabbit hole. I followed the soul like the white rabbit. Like Alice, I followed out of force of habit. I followed down the winding stairs in the labyrinth of my mind. I realized I saw so much more before I was blind. Down, down, down I go. I fall further into finding who I am. I fall further into learning the hidden parts that make me want to scream. Fall further into loving new parts of me. It makes me start to feel free. I flee into the labyrinth of my mind, something that seems so divine. Yet as Alice woke up from her dream, so did I under the moonbeam. So this was kind of my like falling into myself. And actually this was kind of my thought process when I am finding myself, especially when I'm like asleep. I find parts of myself that I didn't realize. And it's like I'm in a dream and I'm like tumbling down trying to find something or trying to open the right door. And I wanted to compare it to Alice and the White Rabbit. So that was this book, or that poem. The next one I'm going to read is called This Goes Out to You. So I have a section in here that talks about love, soulmates, finding the person in life, which is where I start to open up more about like, this is what I desire. I desire to find that person, to find the love that I want. And how do I go about it when, I always had these 6 feet walls? How am I supposed to show myself and find who I'm supposed to be with? But then this poem is actually like a poem that goes to my soulmate. That's like, hey, this goes out to you. If you're reading this, this is for you. So that's what I'm going to read here. So this goes out to you, my love. This poem hopes to reach you like a fluttering dove. I long to be in your arms and feel safe with you. I have thought of where I should move. Where can I be that brings us closer together, where you can finally go to get to meet me, Heather? Where I can finally feel what real love is supposed to be and not one that stings me. This poem goes out to you, my soulmate. I cannot wait to see our story played by fate. I want to be in love with you so much that I use my dreams like a crutch. A crutch that helps me feel you close and feels like it brings you closer than most. I dream of days where we meet and days where we wed. I dream many nights when we are curled up in bed. Sometimes curled up under the moonlight and sometimes tangled in sheets naked in delight. There are some dreams where you can feel so close to touch. I wake up feeling my heart yearn you so much. So my soulmate, wherever you are, I ask you keep me on your radar. Keep me close, keep me in mind, and soon enough you'll find a woman whose heart who has been through so much at a young age, a woman who is quite the mage, yet a woman who wants to fall in love like the books and create her own kind of love with a hook that draws many nearby wondering how a love like ours has to be out there somehow. One that legacies will remember for the ages, one that will be written down within the pages. Soulmate, I leave this poem for you, hoping to guide you back to me as a clue. So this one was a very like sweet poem of like finding who this is. And the last one I'm going to read is called My Grandmother's Love. These next poem, I have a section in my book that is basically thanking the people who have raised me or have been with me through the healing process, which is my mom, my grandmother, who's no longer here, my sister, and then my stepfather, who I now call my dad. And this poem is actually kind of a symbolic poem for my grandmother. And it's also going to be kind of I'll say like a caveat, or not a caveat, more like a crutch for another poem book that I'm planning. So that's where this is kind of coming in. So it goes, I write this poem as someone who grieves the loss of a grandmother who made her leave, a grandmother who loved me with all her heart, one who always took me to the marts. My grandmother was a beautiful soul. She always took a morning stroll. She loved being outside, working in the garden. It's where beautiful flowers blossomed and never hardened. Hummingbirds flocked her house by the dozen. It always seemed quite sudden. We would sit on the porch and watch them fly. They would often zoom on by. My grandmother was my biggest support. She often seemed like my own cohort. Days I would call just to tell her my next plan, or talk her ear off in a long span. So many words and secrets we would say. There were so many adventures we would play. After schools, I was there on many days. She would always come to school to watch me play. She started my massive books to read haul. The one over the phone heard me bawl. The one who let me spend the night whenever, the one I will miss forever. So that is a very, kind of a remembrance poem for her. And I plan to write this as a book of some sort. So those are some kind of sneak peeks at the poems in the book. Of course, there's, I'm only reading 5 out of the 64, but if you're interested in something like this, this is what the cover looks like. The paperback is slightly different by the text because of Amazon's weird publishing stuff, but it is available both ebook and paperback. So yeah, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and the others that I've listed before. And I want to thank you guys so much for checking out the video and watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Hope you have a good day and evening, wherever you are. Bye!